Welcome to Sip Sip Hooray. I'm Mary Babbitt.
I'm Mary Orland, and we're so excited you joined us today because I'm super psyched that we're going to one of my favorite wineries in Napa Valley.
That's right. We're headed to St. Helena to Crocker Starr, where we are going to spend some time with Pam Starr, truly a star in the wine world. This woman knows her science, she knows her soil, her vineyards, her wines, and she knows a thing or two about goats.
And that's all we're going to say right now because you've got to listen and find out what we're talking about. But the winery is very close to downtown St. Helena. It's on the valley floor, so it's kind of in between Highway 29 and the Silverado Trail. And it's such a great place just to go visit. I always like telling people to go there because it's a very rustic, rural experience. And Pam also makes a fantastic Sauvignon Blanc and Cabernet Franc, and they're kind of known as Blanc and Franc. So that's always kind of fun. And so we'll get right into it. They just built a new winery building, and Pam's going to show us around.
Yeah, so stay tuned for a little tour from Pam. Pam, Sip Sip Hooray.
Sip Sip Hooray. Thank you. I'm so glad to be with you too. And Mary, it's always great to see you. And thanks for coming and visiting this shiny little penny that we built.
It's really cool.
Thank you. It's I call it tradition and history meets industrial chic.
Okay.
So as you look around this room, it may look like just a simple tank room, but each one of these tanks converts into its own completely enclosed fermentation and pump over system, which in fact during 2017 when this valley was on fuego was super important because all of the tanks were locked and loaded, locked down, and we could actually perform fermentation and pump overs without any risk of outside air. Yeah, so, simple sometimes is the way to make production happen. I've always wanted to have my own space. I stood in line at a custom crush facility for a really long time, and while standing in line, I think I dreamt this building because it turned out pretty much exactly how I see it. Two very individual barrel rooms and a center tank room. I can convert the tank room to a hospitality area up in the mezzanine, and we've had really fun grand parties in the center of the tank room at night with big candles, and the candles reflect off the stainless, so it's kind of becomes a magical, pretty event space as well. And then each barrel room is perfect for having two separate vintages, one in its second year and the other in its first year, where I can do different temperature controls. So it's fun. So the only timber in this building is on the facade where it's holding up the 30 tons of rock to make it that rock that came from the same rock pile that built the 1870s winery that's down the street. So bringing history and tradition again, and then you walk in and it's like, ooh, industrial chic. So super low impact environmental.
When trying to make it green, you make more work for yourself, but the rewards are huge. And I mean, for not just you personally and your beliefs, but also just for the rest of us in the environment. So thanks for going the extra mile, because I'm sure it would have been cheaper and easier to not be so green.
Yeah, typically that is the case.
Yeah.
It does cost more to be organic, environmentally friendly, but all I've learned over the past 35 years of winemaking is that it only takes 2 years to really get your foot anchored into organic farming. It really doesn't take more than that. So if you can commit for 2 years, typically your operations will follow and the financials will start to ease and flow through. And that's the goat.
Let me litter it.
Yes, please yes, we have a goat.
So you have a goat. Kind of nursing a baby goat.
Well, we don't just make wine around here. We're outside a lot, and it requires our winery dog, Griffin. That's what?
And her name is what?
Her name is what?
How did you come up with what?
I didn't.
How it was taken, or why?
Yeah, exactly. My husband and I hired a goat herder. They're Napa goats to come and eat all the poison oak and blackberry off of our personal property down in Browns Valley, which is in southwest Napa. And our dog Griffin here, who is laying at your feet, who's this beautiful, handsome, hairy beast, he doesn't eat blackberries and poison oak, so we got the goats to do it. And one day the goat herder showed up, and this little cute baby goat popped out of his truck, and I was just like, oh, what's that? It's pretty much everybody's response to the goat. Is that a goat? So the goat herder is paraplegic, basically. He's an amazing person. And come here, what?
Oh my goodness!
Oh yeah,
she's really got some vocal cords.
Yes, she does. She has vocal cords. Well, she'll be 9 weeks old at the end of this week. And we got her when she was a couple days old. Her mom had died. And the goat herder was having a heck of a time feeding her because she wouldn't eat. And so my husband and I bottle fed her, plus my team here. Doesn't hurt to have an all-female team bottle feeding a baby goat all day long.
Oh, yes. And she's adorable. She's
so
brown and white, speckled.
And she has graduated. She's mostly grazing at this point. She gets a little bit of bottle still. But we had a couple of times where we almost lost her. And it's amazing, once you have a goat in your life, how many neighbors and friends and family want to either have a goat or have had a goat experience.
Oh, yes.
Right. And
it opens the world of goats to you.
It's the goat's life. It's the goat's life. Yeah. What, come here.
Well, you can call yourself the goat winemaker, because my sons are always saying they're a goat, the greatest of all time.
Oh, greatest of all time.
Goat.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
All right. I think I might have to get a shirt that says Goat Winemaker.
All right. So can you back up and tell us your story, how you got into making wine?
I can. Let me think. Scratch the cobwebs out of my head a little bit. It was a journey sort of similar to Evan. I was not intended to go to the wine business. I come from a very old-fashioned, conventional Canadian set of parents. All my sisters and I were born in Oregon. We went to Southern California via Missouri. Missouri, I guess is what I'm supposed to say. I went to UC Davis. I was hoping to go to dental school. Okay. And I call it the summer of 1984, where I took an internship in a winery because I had studied fermentation science, which was a relatively new degree at the time.
But you were going to go into dentistry.
I was hoping to. I was studying to take the dental admissions test.
But just a little fermentation on the side, or?
No, look, UC Davis at the time, they produced scientists. They did not make winemakers. They were very strong in their messaging that anybody who came out of the Enology, Viticulture, Fermentation Science department, which included food science and brewing, we were scientists, first and foremost.
Okay.
And so as I was studying to take the dental admissions test, I took a job in the wine business in a winery that was in construction called Sonoma-Cutrer with Bill Benetti. And I was their intern for this summer. And I was also interviewing for a job at Genentech to work in the lab. Okay. And about halfway through my internship, I was driving a forklift for the first time, and I was pulling hoses, and I was stirring barrels and filling barrels and helping to bottle wine. And I was doing a little bit of the acid-based chemistry that's required for winemaking, and I kind of realized at that moment that I didn't want to have a lab job. Yeah. So I turned the Genentech job down, and then about 8 months, my internship finished after 8 months, and I realized I was never going to take the dental admissions test because the world of wine was more complicated than I had ever imagined. And it really didn't have anything to do with making the wine. It had everything to do with the life around it. So,
expand on that. What do you mean by the life around it?
Well, the life spins around the bottle. Mm-hmm. Very much how life spins around a calendar, or we spin around the calendar. Huh. And so it was interesting to me that this winery was trying to figure out whether they should have a croquet court or a lawn tennis court. And I thought, okay, someone's going to have to tell me what that has to do with making wine. And it has everything to do with taking the wine to the consumer. Yeah. It has everything to do with the message in the bottle. But sometimes, and it's really funny how life has changed in 35 years. We still, as humans, require an experiential sometimes to wrap our heads around luxury, and to wrap our heads around luxury on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. Like, you're okay. I give Mary and Mary permission to open great bottles of wine every day. There you go. All right. So there you go.
Wow, we deserve it, Mayor.
There you go. So
Thanks, Pam.
sometimes the general population wants to be enabled to do that.
Yeah.
And so it requires a lifestyle around that bottle. So spinning around that bottle, looking at how beautiful is the punt, what's the shape of the bottle, how does the neck finish, everything about that bottle when it goes into the consumer's hand, it may be subliminal, but it's tactile.
It is, and it speaks to the care that you've put into the contents of the bottle, right? Like if
absolutely.
you're focusing on making the exterior beautiful, chances are you're also focusing on making the interior beautiful.
Right.
If
Right.
you care that much.
Right. You guys could do a show just based on what's behind the label.
Oh, yeah.
There's the title for your show, by the way. You could do like.
We used to have a segment on our TV show called Behind the Label.
Yeah.
And those were the winery profiles.
Yeah, where we meet the
very
winemaker
cool.
and vintners and stuff, and who are the people behind the label.
Yeah.
Well, this is this would be the artist behind the label. So how does the label designer interact or interface with the winemaker to put the message on the bottle? So many interesting things there.
And what's your message?
So in our conversations about creating the Crocker Starr label, I wanted to be able to tie tradition of the old world into the fresh newness look of the new world and express the flavors of the wine on the label at the same time. And you'll see that. So my Sauvignon Blanc label is it's a yellow green or a green yellow, depends on which side of chartreuse you're looking.
Okay.
It's not chartreuse, but it is literally it emulates the color of the fruit that you might bite into, that emulates the flavors in your mouth.
Sure.
And then the other wine that I'm quite well known for is the Cabernet Franc, which I guess I'm the Franc and Blanc queen
That's
around
right.
here. Yeah, that's right. I'm the Franc and Blanc
I love
queen.
that.
Yeah, you've got a strong following for
Frankie
Franc and
Spice.
Blanc.
Frankie Spice. You guys you guys remember that? Yeah, of course you do. Yeah, the Spice Girls. Yeah.
Be my lover. Gotta get with my friends.
There you go. That's so funny. We shouldn't go down that path, though.
No.
But the Cap
You
Franc.
poured the wine for me.
I did. My fault. And the Cap Franc label really captures the colors of the wine and the flavors. So the color of the label captures the flavors in it. So there's blue and brown and purple on the facade. And I think if you're tasting the wine and you look at the bottle without saying it to anybody, you'll have a color relationship with the flavors in your mouth. Not many people think about what color they're tasting.
Right.
But it's just an opportunity for those who maybe have never thought of it to think of it.
Well, if they look at your Sauv Blanc label, those colors would suggest maybe lemon and lime.
It would. It might suggest a little bit of guava, the flesh of a just underripe mango, right? So there are so many exotic fruit pieces there.
Yeah.
And then there are other colors on the label as well, but that's just the main one.
Yeah.
So that's
cool.
there you go.
It's a different way to think about wine.
Right.
In color, and I think some people do taste color when they eat or drink.
I agree. I know I do. I can characterize it as blue, brown,
Right.
black, yellow, green, red. And in fact, maybe that comes from my training. I was a spice technician for a flavor spice company. I was a flavor technician. Another spice thing, Frankie Spice. While I was my last year in college, I needed to raise money. My parents were in this really fantastic divorce. And I learned how to describe pretty precisely with oleoresins and dried spices and ground up pieces of herbs. It was a great experience for me. I was able to really precisely go in and decipher, paprika and cayenne and all these kinds of characters.
What great training for winemaking too, right?
Yeah. And this was before I was still destined I was still destined to take the dental admissions test at that. Yeah.
I'm so glad you didn't.
Yeah,
so
I am too, actually.
Your business partner end up starting a winery together?
Well, good story. Charlie and I met over a phone call, really. He had a guy, very entrepreneurial guy, hey guy, working for him here in the vineyard. And he was friends with the vineyard manager at Spotswood and would come over and say, would you just look at these vines? And so finally he asked me so many times, I gave in, and I pulled out an old soils map, an old soil survey from I think it's from the 40s. And I followed the map, and I looked at the soil banding from the nook that's made from Mayacamas mountain range in Spring Mountain. And I followed the soils from that nook over across town, and then the banding goes right through this property. So I came over and looked at some of the Cabernet Franc vines on the Crocker estate. And at the time, late 90s, everybody was fascinated with mountain slopes, elevations, right? You were in the mountains or you were nothing. And I didn't look at it that way. I looked at this property and I looked at it from a bird's perspective and saw how the soils ran through the property, and the diversity alone was extremely interesting.
All right, so you come over with the map and you see this property, and then how does it happen that you become
Well, so I got a call from Charlie a couple weeks later, and he said, I understand you want to buy some grapes. And I said, no, but I understand that you might want to start a wine. And he said, no, but you should come and see me. And I always like to fluff it up a little bit I put my best winemaking jeans on, and I went down to the big city, and I went up to the 25th floor of One Post Street. In San Francisco. And I met Charlie. I got out of the elevator, and I thought, well, this is going to be about a 3-second conversation. And he came out, and he's just a super charming person, and he he has a very creative mind, and he's got an agricultural background. And so our conversation went on for 3 hours.
Oh, wow. And you thought 3 seconds to 3 hours?
I know. And it seemed like a blink.
Did it?
It was a 3-hour blink. And
That's a good sign.
when he walked me to the door, we shook hands, and Crocker Starr was born.
Just on the handshake.
Just on the handshake.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Wow.
So
Do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
You know?
And this is a very old-fashioned formula of making a winery. You know, Charlie and I have very different financial backgrounds. And so to make this work, it's a 50-50 partnership where we both have to put in a little blood, sweat, and tears. And, the cash came from our sales of our first wine. 100 cases I produced.
What was that?
Cabernet Franc.
Wow.
And I had 7 or 8 consulting jobs. That's how I paid my mortgage. And about 7 or 8 years in, I paid myself my first check, and I stopped consulting, and I started hiring people about year 10. And I have just oddly enough, I think I mentioned to you guys when you showed up that I have an all-female team right now.
Which is so cool. And it wasn't intentional.
No, best person for the job. So whoever showed up and seemed to be the best person for the job. And it's funny, Charlie and I sit back and I'm like, sorry, Charlie, I didn't do this intentionally. And he's like, that's okay, I really like it.
Well, I think it says so much about how the wine industry has changed in the last 20 years, and that there are great female candidates, and that it doesn't necessarily matter whether they're male or female. Like you said, you picked the best people for the job, and they happen to be women.
Yeah, right? They did. They really just happened to be women. And we'll see what happens in the future, because I've taken myself out of the puzzle, and Evan and Diana are now responsible for bringing on any new people. So it's completely out of my hands. Hooray.
Yeah, you were getting started.
Sip, sip, hooray.
When you were getting started, though, I'm imagining there weren't a lot of women winemakers at the time. Were you in good company with women, or were you among the few and the proud here in the Napa Valley?
I think that my genre of winemaker, and I can name them. You know all the girls that they're out there. It's Heidi, Mia, Francoise. I guess I should just keep going, but Rosemary. I can't think of all the girls' names, but they're amazing. And we were sort of fresh guard. I think it was Zelma Long who super impressed the wine business as a business leader, and she was one of the first females to actually hit over 6 figures and become president of winemaking at CME. So that really sort of exposed the fact that, and this happened, this in the 80s, this was happening in business across the United States. You know, Karen McNeil has a really good story about being silent for so many years, tasting with men, and then, you know, bursting out of her own bubble and driving her own train. So I think women in general, we're obligated to take the bull by the horns and create our own space. And I still have to say that I've been mentoring a couple women who I've said, well, why are you standing in the background? Why are you complaining that you're not up front tasting with the team? Did you ask? Did you tell them did you say what time's the tasting?
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of the couple that I've spoken with, because they've taken charge of their lives and they're actually rising in the company that they were complaining about.
That self-advocacy.
You know,
Yes.
I think it helps to have someone coach you and
Standing
encourage you
on
to
the
do
shoulders,
that.
right?
You know, yes, you can. You should do it.
Right.
It's your, you know, you have every right to be there.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, our world is male dominated. Our politics are male dominated, and women and men are so necessarily different. Thank God that we're different.
Of course.
Really, I mean, and that's what makes us so compatible as well. So I never look at myself as a female winemaker.
Right.
I'm just a person who has a fire inside that was able to find a channel to blow that fire and build something. And not everybody has the opportunity to build a winery. I built this business. And then it took me 19 years to build the business, and then I built this building.
So cool.
Yeah.
It's a good story. I mean,
It wasn't an overnight deal.
It was 19. You know, if I had a
never
bunch
is.
of cash infusion in here, it would have been built in 3 years, and that's just not the story here. And sometimes I have a green jealous moment when I look at shiny pennies across the way with Juilliard and gorgeous caves, and I think, Pam, it's not about the building. I'm grateful that I have some of the best vines that produce some of the best grapes, and not just Napa, but I would say that Crocker and Starr wines could sit amongst those great wines of the world.
Oh, I totally agree with you.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm thoroughly enjoying the Sauvignon Blanc that you shared with us.
Yes.
Should we head over to
Yes,
the
let's do it.
the main
Okay,
goat?
let's walk. Come on, what? Let's go. Come on, go. Come on, Griff. Got the Griff, got the goat. Okay, well, I'm
Yeah, we're good.
short walk over here to what we call the Stone House. This is our experiential room where after we touch the vines, we taste the wine. So the seated tasting at this beautiful walnut table that was made from trees that have fallen on the property. Everything's repurposed. Isn't it pretty?
Yeah, I was like, I immediately started like rubbing my hands along, and it's just lovely. And yes, I hear. Yeah, go ahead. She's quiet. She just wants
Did you see
you.
her run by?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so that's really funny.
Do you need to go grab her?
No, she's fine. I think my husband's right outside the door, so Norm will have to try to get her.
She's like your little baby.
She is a baby.
little bit of work, huh?
Yeah, she screams until she finds somebody, and then she's like, "Oh yeah, okay, cool. I'm fine. I'm going to graze now." So she'll be fine in a second. So anyway, we're in the Stone House, and again, this is where we can usually seat up to 6 people in here. We're a one-on-one experiential where you won't typically see anybody else on the property. We're a pretty small staff, so typically like handling one group at a time, maybe 4 a day is about what we can do.
Wow.
Okay, so
And this is, you're pouring what?
I'm pouring the 2016 Malbec, which is blend number 9. It's the 9th Malbec we've done here on the property. I planted Malbec here, oh gosh, it must be, these vines must be 15 years old maybe. Let me think. What year is this? 2019?
19?
Yeah, I mean, they must be 12 or 15 years old now, but
And how did you decide to do Malbec?
it's one of the Bordeaux varieties. It's a historic Bordeaux variety. Laura Catena wrote this great book called Vino Argentino. And did you read it, Mary?
Yes, I have it.
Right? It's such a great guide. If you're going to go to Mendoza, get that book because we did almost everything in her book that she suggested do. And so she has little factoids along the way, and one of them is the fact that Malbec was pretty much 60% of all the plantings in Bordeaux before
high.
it was that high, and it was before rootstocks came into being. So this is pre-phylloxera days. And then once rootstocks combined with the Malbec, the Bordelais kicked it out because it got to be too big, and it was no longer a player. So I just historically have always wanted to bring it in to the property. So I planted it, and then I too journeyed down to Mendoza. And what I discovered is that some of the best Malbecs are blended with the classic Bordeaux varieties. So this has blend number 9 has 20% Cabernet Sauvignon in it from, I believe I got it from Block 15, which is our special S clone on 10114 rootstock down by the old estate. Isn't that pretty?
It's really nice.
Right?
Pretty, very perfumey.
It is. So one thing about Malbec is it looks like that crazy fluorescent color in the crayon box in the back. You're like, okay, is that black, purple, red, or what? And it looks like Malbec looks very fluorescent in its fermentation.
Oh, does it?
It does, and so then it gets more black and it gets more blues, and as it starts to resolve itself in the fermentation, I feel like there's a character that becomes this very wild berry, muddled with what I would call seared meat and sticks and stones. Are you okay? Oh, Mary, I just made you laugh.
You got me at seared meat.
Yeah. Got
Sticks
me.
and stones. I was following every word. The wild berry, yes. Seared meat and sticks and stones.
Yeah, it is. It really, it's a berry picking patch experiential, all in one glass.
It's really good. Yeah.
I think that the hardest descriptors are for Malbec. I don't know that it's not, the Malbec is not pure enough to be, well, like when I get Cabernet, I'm going to get black cherry, and I'm going to get blueberry for Cab Franc, and I'm going to get raspberry for...
I think you get a mix in this glass. At least.
You do. You really do get a mix in this glass.
And is it fun for you to introduce people to it who come, I think so many people in Napa Valley come and think Cabernet only, or Chardonnay, or Sauvignon Blanc is more common, right? But I think people come and think Cab, and to introduce a Malbec to them might be kind of a fun experience if you don't know the wine world, right?
It is very true that Napa Valley is founded on the king of all grape varieties. Cabernet Sauvignon has a full vertical of phenolic and flavor material. It has the full tilt boogie, right? And while it's resolving itself in the bottle and becoming more and more seamless, we kind of need other things to drink. And there are so many parcels of grape land, vine land in Napa that are really not perfect for Cabernet Sauvignon. In fact, I discovered that here at the Crocker estate, because I launched this company 22 and a half years ago with 100 cases of Cabernet Franc.
Cabernet Franc, yeah.
And in the 90s, Cabernet Sauvignon was just blowing up, with the .com world and prices going crazy. Here I was, like this little silent kind of cool project being launched in the hands of sommeliers. Literally, that was my marketing program. Like, okay, well, whoever wants this. And then one somm spoke to another somm, who spoke to another somm. Yeah. And that's how Crocker Starr was launched.
It's kind of the grassroots marketing.
It is.
In the wine world.
Right.
And I think the somms on your side.
Absolutely. And today it's a whole different genre of somms, and they're reading materials instead of tasting wines. And so once they stop reading marketing materials and these young buyers taste wines, I think they're going to discover that the reading materials aren't deep enough for satisfying the soul.
Yes.
And wines should be soul satisfying.
I agree.
It's such a hedonic beverage. I mean, how could it not be, right? And there's so much magic in wine, really. I mean, you spoke with Randall Graham, and he was our first billboarded scientist of wine. And I remember him being on the cover in the 80s and in a lab coat. And if it was true that you could actually create wine on a lab surface, we wouldn't be growing grapes. Right?
And
they're
trying, though.
They are trying, and it's interesting. They're not going to be successful because the organic makeup of a grape specifically, let's pick two, Cabernet Sauvignon and Cabernet Franc. Their skin development is the creation of the core of those wines, right? So the skin of Cabernet Franc pops cardamom and blueberry in your mouth, and then the skin of Cabernet Sauvignon pops that black ink charcoal graphite quality that goes with the jelly of the inside black cherry. So there, as much as we would love to be able to create on a laptop, then it gets crazy because once we start doing fermentations, all these extractions happen, and the dynamic, there's no way to recreate that other than make a fermentation.
To me, that's where the magic happens. Really, what turns just grapefruit juice into something so complex and so many different flavors than just grape.
Right. It's such a farm fresh product, right? So wine, we talk about farm to table. This is vine to glass,
Right. Yeah.
And though it takes 3 years to bring Cabernet Sauvignon to the glass, at least it only takes 10 months to bring a Sauvignon Blanc to the glass. So it's still the wine business is still agriculture, classically preserved through an old-fashioned technique called fermentation.
Do you still get excited about it? You've been doing it a while now. Yeah.
I do. I have to say that I'm so appreciative that I've been able to put a team together that are taking over the daily aspects of running a winery and running the business. And I'm spending more time talking with people like yourselves. And I think it's time for this gal to share 35 years of passionate grape growing and winemaking. It's not like we can make beer. It's not like we just start over. So making wine is definitely, you have to pick a path and you have to stick with it. Right?
Because it'll take you a few years to know if that path you chose works out or not.
Right. So it's nice to be able to have Evan, who I can hand the baton to, who understands what we're trying to achieve and accomplish. And so this 2018 Sauvignon Blanc is her second fermentation with me.
Well
so we did. Yeah, very well done.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So 2 years she's been with us, and I'm really looking forward to. She's putting together 2017 blends right now, and we're really, though we don't have very much of them. I'm excited because they're really juicy and they're super delicious. So she's working really hard on those blends. We'll wait and see.
So you've got to tell us about the label.
All right.
And the figure on the label.
So...
and this is on the Malbec.
It is the Malbec. So the Malbec is called the Casale wine. Casale means farmhouse in Italian. We just translated it to party barn, basically. The 1870s brandy house down the street, right next to the old winery, is where the brandy pots were burned. And so when I met Charlie, he was just closing in the roof and making a big party room, which was named the Casale. And there is a painting on the ceiling, a 6-foot tall painting on the ceiling of this very debonair, sort of suave, jester-looking Italian man, where he's smoking this pipe and he's hiding grapes behind his back. And he's got the magical, mythical dragonfly up above him. And the dragonfly is fantastic because it's a totem for positive change. And that was my husband bringing the goat back in. So, yeah, this is family time. We've got goat, the dog, my husband, and now the Casale man.
The gang's all here.
Yeah, the gang's all here.
Well, I love it. That Casale man it's really fun and whimsical.
Right. So the membership, I'm very fortunate that they are very loyal and very thirsty. So yes, it's called the Casale Club. It is, and that's really it is. Yes, cheers to great friends and great wines. That's our motto.
Oh, nice.
And though I'd love to be able to expand the Cabernet Franc that I produce, I can't. It's exactly a specific parcel of grapes. And then the Stone-Place Cabernet Sauvignon, it's also a fixed set of bottles that I can produce because it's tied to Block 3, 45-year-old Cabernet vines. So every time I've tried to expand one of the wines, I end up creating another wine. And each wine is based very solely on the block that it comes from. So this Casale Malbec comes from Block 2, 9, and 15. And so then I'm going to pour in your other glass that you have, the One Post 2015, or is this the 6th? Nope, we're going back. This is the 2013 Little Library. Wow. team's been drinking library, I see.
Don't mind if I do.
Don't mind if I do. And one post Cabernet Sauvignon is
out of town.
That's so funny. The one post is specifically from Block 1. It is a layering of historic farmer selections and an homage to how farmers used to trade wood freely. And what is it, little girl? What do you need, little goat?
That's really good. It's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
Really great.
And it's from the 2013 vintage, which is a mouthful already. I mean, the 2013 vintage across the board is dense with tannins. It's almost like fudge or wading through a big thick mocha. And though this wine is still very young and evolving, we like to show people that even just in a couple years' time, the wine's starting to open up. It still has so much more time to knit.
It does, but it's just very expressive already.
Very high tone.
The fudge is exactly right. It's beautiful. It's great.
Love fudge. Don't even have to put it in the wine to get it.
It's magic.
It's magic. So one post, the design here, I wish we could show your listeners, but Jim Cross, our label designer, came up with one in the center with post written across horizontally to emulate one of the pillars of the Golden Gate Bridge.
I was going to say it kind of has a bridge look there. Yeah, really cool.
And to bridge San Francisco, our meeting place, to St. Helena, our grape growing place.
Really well done.
Yeah, Jim's a really creative person. I'm very honored that he put together even the Casale label, putting the jester on top and putting a new number in every year is not an easy task to accomplish. So, yeah, good.
Well, one of the things we like to do on Sip Sip Hooray is ask just a series of little, I would say rapid fire questions, but we're never that fast at them. So, and then we talk.
You say something that makes us think of something, and
we get
start
distracted,
talking
right?
about it, and then,
But we just like a series of little fun, light questions. So I'll start us off with how would you describe a perfect day for you?
A perfect day after I retire, or a perfect day when I... Just kidding. I think a perfect winemaker day would be during harvest. I dream about harvest days. I know what I'm doing every single day. So I believe that my perfect day is up before sun. The land is quiet. The lights are shining with night harvesting across the valley as I drive up valley, picking, getting to the winery, everything's silent, and then having one of the first team members show up and put on their music, and that music will start our day.
And what type of music is it?
We leave it to our interns. It's their job. The intern, we actually interview interns based on what they like to listen to. And I've had very great luck in interns who have a very broad genre of music that they listen to. So if I walk into like deep jazz or classical music, or I walk into something like Blues Travelers, I know how that day is gonna start.
Kind of gives you a vibe.
It gives you a vibe, right? It gives you a vibe. And
can you get that song out of your head all day?
Yeah. Yes, because the music continues on throughout the day. And I think the perfect day is the great flow of everything just works perfectly. The equipment cooperates. The grapes are perfectly destemmed. Fermentations are smelling beautifully. The team is all jiving. Everybody's on par. There's science going on, and nobody's longer than maybe a 9 or a 10-hour day.
Just a 9 or a 10.
Those are small days.
Wow.
Right.
How often does that happen?
I think my perfect day, many times during harvest.
That's good.
Many
I thought
times.
you were going to say never.
Many times.
great.
Many times.
That's great.
In my early days of making wine, when I was a solo player, before I had a team, not so many days, because I was in a custom facility where I was taken very well care of. But still navigating other people's swamps. You know what I mean? Like, are there crocodiles in there? Are the snakes going to bite you? And I think just trying to navigate across and find a bridge to where I was going to work for the day would be tough.
Sure.
And once I landed on that island, everything would go well. But I think the days starting here with silence and in darkness, with fabricated lights outside, and then having the team roll in and music play, I think that's pretty perfect.
That sounds really good.
So what kind of music are you into?
I listen to a lot of different music. My husband's very much into country. We listen to new country all the time. And I am fans, but I played the violin when I was a little girl. And so if I choose music in the morning, it's going to be classical. And typically it's going to be something very Mozart driven. Happy Mozart, playful Mozart.
Yeah.
And then I will also go to non-verbal music. So I really enjoy Thievery Corporation because there's a vibe in their music ensembles and their riffs where almost it sounds like they're singing music words, but they're not. All the way through to, I know, Stevie Ray Vaughan, a little get down, let's get dirty. And then the team, ultimately, they'll put on Beyonce and what's the other one? Whitney Houston. And when they put Whitney Houston on, I'm like, all right, you guys, you just crossed the line, So typically we'll take a hard right turn or a hard left turn and put on some Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, good.
Yeah, really good.
Sing along song.
Yeah, absolutely. Or we'll put on some Prince. I think Prince is a stimulating one. Yeah. So, and you can't go wrong with Queen.
Oh, no,
Never. Yeah. And then there's always going to be a little Billy Idol in the mix.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Good.
A little White Wedding. Yeah.
You are eclectic. You got a lot in there.
Yeah.
All right, what about food? What's your go-to favorite kind of food?
Food that I shouldn't eat is my go-to food. Like, I love French fries and Sauvignon Blanc. I think it's a classic combination.
I haven't tried that before.
Salty.
Yeah, and not too hot. Emeril Lagasse introduced me to a potato chip I thought was really quite good. And, of course, the name escapes me right now. I'll have to look it up and text you guys and let you know what it is. But I like that flavor. I think it pops the limeade and the margarita kind of quality of Sauvignon Blanc. I love to cook, but right now I don't have a kitchen. Long, involved story. My husband and I are trying to build a house. Anyway, I have a grill outside to cook with, so I like to make fresh. I'm very much into putting grilled things on salads and making squeezed lime or lemon on top of food. So
you mentioned the limeade margarita. So if a margarita drinker hasn't had Sauv Blanc, that seems like a good way to get them to try it. If you like a margarita, well, my Sauvignon Blanc is kind of like that too.
It's true. I think Sauvignon Blanc across the board. So we'll have a little tangential here on Sauvignon Blanc. It is a great variety that it garners the least loyalty amongst wine drinkers because it is the least flavor profile consistent. So people say Chardonnay and immediately they have this oak and viscosity and butter. Okay. You say Sauvignon Blanc and you could get 30 minds thinking 30 different flavor profiles. Right? Yeah. So I think one of the things that Crocker Starr has done is we've taken two very difficult grape varieties and we have created a go-to flavor profile that people trust and they love.
Yes.
Right?
Well, I know a lot of non-Sauvignon Blanc drinkers who've had yours and just love it.
I have when you go to a public tasting and you're pouring your wine and ultimately somebody, gives you the Heisman, no. Here, I'll give this to my friend. And so they'll politely take a little bit of the Sauvignon Blanc. 99% of those people will come back to my table and say, I don't like Sauvignon Blanc, but I really like your Sauvignon Blanc.
Oh, that's great.
And so it opens, all we have to do is open our mind and taste. And I have to say that it's always such a joy for me to watch somebody have a mind-opening tasting experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what TV series are you into now?
I do not watch those who are watching that show. Yeah. I can't.
I don't do it.
It's too violent for me. I mean, I like to watch Julie Andrews and The Sound of Music over and over and over again. And maybe I'll sing along. Who knows? I don't really, I have to say this is terrible, but I'm a huge fan of The Voice. Mm-hmm. I've been watching it since it started, and I'm a huge fan of Kelly Clarkson.
I was going to say, which team?
I'm a huge fan of Kelly Clarkson, and I went to a live showing of I got some VIP seats, took Evan, her wife, and my husband, and 4 of us went down there, and I'm a huge fan. I like how I love vocals, and I like watching people try to achieve their dream.
Wow. And doing it live.
Doing it live is cool. So I'm not a huge. My husband's he'll watch CSI all day long, but so we have to trade the remote control back and forth every once in a while.
I can't watch the scary stuff before bed. Yeah. What about favorite vacation destination? Have you been to any places that just knocked your socks off, or do you have a place you go back to again and again?
There are 2 places that I personally like to return to over and over and over again. I love Tahoe. It is one of the wonders of the world, and it's very close by.
North Shore?
North Shore.
Yeah.
Absolutely North Shore. Okay. And on the Nevada side, where the big rocks are. And so jumping into the water is quite eye-opening and refreshing. And swimming next to the rocks heats the water. And so shallow swimming there is really wonderful. Yeah.
So that's one place. You said there's 2?
I like the ocean a lot. So
growing up near the beach.
Yeah.
We both are from Southern California.
Right.
And
competitive high schools.
But you grow up with that, just that air, I think. I love the ocean, just having grown up with the beach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and wine next to the ocean is delicious.
Do you have a favorite beach?
So my father was a sailor. That was that he did it as a pastime, and he took us sailing. And my sister, who's down in San Diego, she has a wonderful sailboat, and we used to spend summers over at Catalina Island. So I love going and sailing back to Catalina. Yes. And there's a really wonderful cove called the Emerald Bay.
My son is there right now.
Right now?
With a school trip.
Oh my gosh. It is really one of the most wonderful bays out there. And they have Garibaldis everywhere. If I'm a snorkeling fan, swim fan, and the water's a little bit cooler than maybe if you went to Anguilla, and I'll go to all those places too, but I could go back to Catalina any day.
That is so funny. Yeah. He's at Emerald Bay. That's where he's staying.
Wow, he's going to have the best time. I hope he gets to go into the water and do some snorkeling in the kelp beds and then around the rock there. There's a big rock at the point. Such a great protected bay.
Yeah. Oh, Catalina. That's fun.
Good for you.
When you're not drinking wine, what are you drinking?
Martinis.
Nice. You prefer them
Gin. And the gin has to be largely floral. Not necessarily high juniper, but very largely floral.
Okay. All right. This might be hard to come up with on the spot, but something you're most proud of, or at least proud of, if not most.
I have to say, I'm most proud that I created this company. I did not grow up with I'm a scientist and a mathematician first. I mean, I grew up with science and math. I think in numbers. I make blends in numbers in my head. And it was a really big stretch for me to write the business plan and forge ahead and create this company. So it was one of the most personality and life-stretching projects I've ever done.
Well, you have a lot to be proud of.
Thank you.
We're so grateful to be able to spend the afternoon with you.
I'm so glad you decided not to go to dental school.
Me too. Thanks, Mary. I know, right? Dental school.
Thank you so much, Pam.
Cheers.
To you.
Sip, sip, hooray.